Welcome back to AIA Live. I'm your host, Charlie Spice, and once again, we're in the studio for the talk show for the adult entertainment industry. Our first show was on Saturday, the 18th of January 2020, and it was a fantastic show. We had Greg July in the office with us. He's from Barbados, an AIA member, and also the chapter manager for Barbados. Greg was kind enough to come onto the show and pose a number of questions that he wanted to ask about the association for the benefit of the audience, and he did a fantastic job. The special guest for the pilot episode was the fabulous Amy Taylor, who is a high class companion from Los Angeles, California, and she was on the show talking about her personal life. She talked about her work, and she was brave enough to make a number of confessions that for which I would like to commend her for that bravery, and also for giving AIA Live the opportunity to talk a bit about it. Today is a different show. Today is show number 2, and we have in the studio with us Jet Black. We're going to have to find out the origins of that name, because when we think about this black person, I have a friend. I've had a friend at school, and we called him Jet Black actually, and he was so dark. At times he looked blue, So when you our guest,
really?
You're gonna have to find out about this Jet Black in a minute, okay? We're gonna be talking about Jet and his personal life, also about Sweet Release Agency, which is the company Jet founded and is the CEO of. And I'm proud to say that we're now partnered because Jet and his team are the AIA chapter manager for Australia. Jet, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks again for reconnecting with us. I'm excited to actually not only be on a show with you, considering this is like a starting thing for you with the AIA Live, but also to, I guess, share the backstory like you touched on briefly just there as to who the hell I am.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I noticed you pulled back the F word just now, but
Yeah, I tried to.
I like to think that we can be ourselves on shows and say what we like, but we are on Facebook, so we've got to be a little bit PC, So, but if it comes out, it's okay. We'll forgive you. Forgive me if it comes out as well on my side. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Tell me a bit about. We want to talk about Sweet Release, but before we get to that, the audience would love to know about Jet. Who the hell is Jet? Where did it come from?
Yeah, sure. So I started my career like I think most independent escorts start their career not really knowing what the adult industry is or how it starts. And I didn't want to use my birth name in the adult industry, and a lot of escorts are the same, especially porn stars. I don't think any of us use the name we were born with. But in terms of my adult industry career, I landed in it probably a story that a lot of escorts have when I think about it. But I landed in the escort industry out of curiosity. There are many people have different stories of how they get started. But I landed in the adult industry purely out of curiosity. I had two things going through my mind at the time. I was gay, sexually, I'm homosexual, so I identify that way with the queer community. Yeah. And I didn't really know where I fit. So I had a really supportive family, and I didn't know what it meant to be gay, first and foremost, when I was 18, and trying not to let the secret come out, because I didn't come out till much later. Yeah. But I entered the gay scene earlier than what I did coming out. So I met a lot of gay people through work when I was working in my 9 to 5 job at the time. Yeah. And I went to my first gay bar and met a lot of drag queens, DJs, nightclub managers, all the other interesting characters that come with the adult industry that, we tend not to talk about, but they're there.
Can I interject here, if I may? At what age did you discover you were gay, and what was that experience like?
I discovered I was gay, I think around the age of 12, but I was denying it. I
Mm.
I knew I was different, but I didn't quite understand how different I was. So I was 12 years old, knew I had a lot of female friends, but didn't understand what that meant. Hated sport. I was very artistic, very
Yeah.
music driven, very
Yeah.
performance.
Mm.
I used religion at the time, funnily
Yeah.
enough, to kind of pull myself out of what I thought was my sexuality, because I was religiously driven. So I was Christian at the time and going to church and working in children's ministry, and thought if I pushed myself in the direction of my faith, I would become straight.
Yeah.
And worked for different organizations that were religiously driven. And
Mm.
I came to a realization point, I think about 16 years age, where I was running youth camps and was denying my sexuality. And I felt like if I just kept believing in Jesus and all of this stuff, I would not be
Yeah.
gay. And it wasn't until a little kid approached me at one of those institutions and the camp I was running, which was amazing. He had questions about his sexuality. And it was like looking in a mirror, and I could not deny to that kid his feeling for the same sex. And I was like, I can't deny myself anymore. So I've just told the kid the truth, that God loves him for who he is and that he shouldn't change. And then I was like, hang on, I should have told myself that. So,
That brings me to another question. That brings me to another question. It brings me to another question. What was society's attitudes like back then to the LGBTQ community, and how did that impact on you?
It's funny because it's only like a couple of years ago when you think about it. Like I'm 28 now, and I came out at 18, 19 years of age, and my sexuality was like, I was confused then, but the media portrayal around 2009, 2010 was very pushy in I guess the aspect that if you're gay, you fuck anything that moves. If you're gay, you have HIV. Like the way the media portrayed things around that time frame for me was very driven around health issues, and a lot of people were scared of people that were gay in Australia because of the media's push of the Mardi Gras, but not in a positive way. They kind of focused on people wearing glitter and the sex, drugs, rock and roll culture. So it was very generalized.
Okay, that explains the media, but what about society? People in your community, your neighborhood, what was the attitude then? I mean, tell me a bit about that.
See, I had a good upbringing. My family was very accepting when I came out. A lot of people outside of the family, though, like just in general, were closed-minded. No one really understood it. Everyone knew that gays had their parade, but that was about it. And if you were gay, it was kind of a problem. Like you have something wrong with you, and that was kind. I felt the impact of that. So,
I would. Every time I saw a commercial about Australia or a documentary or anything, it always portrayed rugged men who a society that you would not imagine would be sympathetic towards the gay community. So it's interesting for me to hear your response to this, and I'm sure the audience as well, because we have this picture in our mind of all rough, rugged men, and that is Australia.
Or the wife beater, the white singlet things, the kangaroos hopping in the background,
that was very interesting. Well, when you came out and decided you were going to embrace your sexuality, how did life then take shape for you beyond that point?
It was crazy. Like it was a really quick, hard and fast journey through what for me at the time was, that sex, drugs, rock and roll culture for me. Like I had no idea where I fit in. So I knew at the time that I was gay, I knew there were clubs, I knew there were social circles for it. And I kind of just took myself on this journey of might as well try everything once,
Yeah.
and find myself in that process. So
Yeah.
I met a lot of people at gay bars, and that kind of started that journey. And I guess I was so unsure of where I fit that I was a chameleon. So I adapted to every sort of social circle I landed in, from drag queens to nightclub owners, like I said earlier, to the more dangerous side of it. But and you learn and then you leave. But yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, but and that kind of opened the door for me to experience what it was to find my sexuality, because I hadn't had sex by that point. I was still curious. I knew I liked men and I was attracted to them, but I hadn't engaged sexually. So I was like, oh, okay, I have friends that are escorts. So I was curious about how escorting would introduce me to my sexuality, and I'd be able to learn who I was. So it was unusual, but I went on this journey of being an independent escort. So I went out to nightclubs every weekend, and through that journey, I was like, oh, this guy's into me, so I'll work independently. And I went home with them and made some money. But in the process, I learned a lot of different things about people in the gay community. So I was like, oh, you can have a good job and not be judged by society or have that impact you. You can just be your own person. So I kind of lived vicariously through all of these different client experiences I had. And that's kind of how I found myself. And in the process, I just became more and more of a sex worker, and I loved it because I got to hear other people's stories, and that people liked me for me and what I was giving them, and I was getting something back from them, which was understanding myself. And my sexuality. So it was a really interesting experience for me to kind of grow as a sex worker and as who I am today by being a sex worker. So
See, no, it's interesting. When I was growing up in Barbados, we become a product of our socialization, and I was cultured to be homophobic because at that time, and I have to admit that when I first left Barbados for the United States, for Los Angeles, I was homophobic. It got to a point where if a gay person stood next to me, I would have physical reaction. I would get goosebumps. I have to move away because I'm not supposed to be next to this person, because I was taught that way. It took me only a year or so in Los Angeles to realize that is absolute nonsense. The world is for everyone, and I became very accepting of everyone's sexuality. I am the most gay-friendly person you can imagine, and very often people misinterpret me being gay-friendly for being gay, and I cannot begin to tell you how many times I've been approached in my life, and more so in the last 10 years, online, by men from the gay community. Men just automatically think I'm gay because I'm so open, and it used to bother me at first. I mean, every week, even I'm talking yesterday, someone who saw me on the first episode, he's made an approach to me from Barbados to invite me on a date. So
you're really polished and you're really well groomed. I'm digging the beard, the glasses.
Perhaps. I guess so. I guess I'm
for most straight men, the style's not always there. So you're rocking it. So.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And as a gay man, I take that as the ultimate compliment, because when a man is put together, right?
You're put together.
Absolutely. But it can be a little bit annoying when every minute some man is approaching you. Although I don't have a problem with the gay community, maybe I need to get your advice at some point. How do I handle this? Because I don't want to be offensive. And but anyway, that's my little bit about my experience with the gay community. But I've actually tried to start an online gay community for the Caribbean. It's called the Caribbean Gay Scene, and CaribbeanGayScene.com. And I got so much negative rhetoric for trying to start that, but it doesn't faze me. I'm going to readdress that very soon, because I believe there's a place in the market for this online community, and I'm going to push that early in 2020. So look,
especially, sorry to cut in, but especially because you said that, you know, Barbados has this I guess what some would call a narrow-minded view on the queer community. So to have a platform like that, it kind of brings people together.
it's not
So they have more
narrow. They pretend it's a narrow view, but our society here, there's a very active gay community in Barbados. Okay, and there's a lot of denial as well because of society and because of the Christian values we're supposed to have. But Barbados is probably the most hypocritical country in the world. Okay, and the gay community is thriving here, and so I don't. It's interesting what's happening now because we do not openly oppose the gay community. We have more and more members of the gay community coming to Barbados on holiday, and they're not disturbed by anyone. People may speak behind their back if they're openly affectionate in public, but we don't have issues with people attacking members of the gay community. We're quite progressive in our thinking, although we don't like to admit that.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's like the mainstreams, you know, the mainstreams take on the adult industry. We all have sex, but no one wants to talk about it.
Oh, yes.
So it's kind of the same sort of thing.
Of course. People are against, I get a lot of pressure from society because I'm so open about who I am and what I do. You know, they would prefer me to be closeted about it, to be secretly operating, not saying anything, and only speak to them privately. The moment I get in front of a camera like we are right now, there are people in our society who would resent the fact that we're talking on live broadcasts about them so openly. It's unbelievable.
That's their problem.
Absolutely. Let us talk a bit about Sweet Release Agency. Now, when I first saw the word Sweet Release, I have to admit, I thought it was some sex toy that gave you amazing orgasms. Okay? Until I read further and was disappointed that it was a PR company and not a sex toy.
Point. Although we'll have to release something now. Maybe we'll have to give our clients, our own sort of sex toy.
Well, I'll tell you something. If you were to create a product under the name Sweet Release as a sex toy, you would do extremely well, in addition to how successful you are as a PR company. Okay? So tell us a bit about Sweet Release Agency.
Yeah, sure. So Sweet Release came from, so the name comes from orgasm, so you got it right. Unfortunately, it's not a product, but you've given me an idea now. I should have thought about that before. But yeah, in terms of where we started, I started the company out of a random realization that a lot of mainstream companies out there that don't understand the adult industry have this immediate guard up, or they create this wall between adult businesses and then their services. And having spoken to a lot of different businesses and a lot of escorts that work as massage therapists, and that's all they do with a happy ending if you're lucky. We're struggling with marketing and advertising, even brothels and saunas. And I just thought that's weird, because all these companies out there that say they're marketing and advertising companies say that they're there to solve a problem for a business or their brand or whatever it might be. So whether it's a branding consideration or a marketing advertising campaign, a new product or a service. I've always had this mindset, and that's probably because I worked as a sex worker, which is now clocking over 10 years, that I have always seen things as just a problem, and my job as a marketer is to solve it. Yeah. And having the feedback from businesses and sex workers and different entities of the adult industry has been that they've gone to a mainstream company and been turned away.
Yeah.
And having had that feedback from a lot of different businesses, I was like, what the fuck is wrong with these companies that say that they're there to solve a problem? They're a marketing professional. So if they're a marketing professional, their job is to not really care about the nature of the business and just to solve the problem. So through those conversations with different people, and also noticing it myself as an escort, I noticed that it was hard to find anyone out there that knew anything about the industry and how to market and promote or build a website or be comfortable writing content. So I made the phone calls. I rang all these different companies and I was like, I have a sex business. I need help with this. And the feedback came back quite loudly from different mainstream companies that work with large beverage companies or hotels or airlines that we will not touch you with a 10-foot pole because you will damage our bread and butter clients and they won't be comfortable if they find out we're working with you. And I was quite taken back by that because I just thought, oh no, the businesses I was helping early on were just had hit a rough spot and made assumptions. But having copped it directly from multiple businesses, I think I rang about 80 different businesses around the world trying to find someone that would give me the time of day, that there was a problem, and all these businesses were looking for someone that would listen and help them. So fast tracking it from about 40 clients when we started 2 years ago, we started helping sex workers with website design and advertising writing and talking to sex product developers and apps that needed help with marketing in Australia specifically at the time, and found that our skill set, or my skill set particularly, was very aligned with the industry, and I could speak the language because I was a sex worker. And I was like, hang on a minute, I'm more respected as a marketer and an advertiser and a publicist in an industry that no one else is helping versus all of these mainstream clients that I've been helping for years that just kind of expect it. And I was like, this is weird. Like, these companies that are restaurants, hotels, cafes, they expect you to do the work. Whereas the adult industry didn't even expect anything because they've never had something like this. And so fast track couple of months, I went from 40 clients to a couple hundred, and I was like, okay, this is a thing. We need to come up with a brand, and we need a name, and we need to think about it. So I thought back to when I was an escort, and I was like, okay, so when I was working as an escort, what did I enjoy the most? And I enjoyed getting off because, let's face it, that was the be all and end all. If the client got off, that was a sweet release or a sweet victory at the time. So the name kind of came out of that. Came being metaphorically, there's a word for you. But it did. The name Sweet Release came from that sort of release, or to let go of something. So I thought, what better way for the industry to let go of their problems or their anxiety?
I wasn't far off the mark when I thought, when I saw Sweet Release, I'm thinking this is a sex toy here. And okay.
I keep using the word came now. Now we're talking about it. It came, palm, spoof, whatever you want to call it. The name fused itself into reality from working as a sex worker. So initially, it was.
I've got a thought here. I guess if you were to call it sweet cum, it's too obvious. But sweet release gives you plausible deniability.
Yeah, it does. It makes it less obvious, even though it kind of is obvious.
Absolutely. Tell me something about the attitudes of people in Australia and the legislation as they relate to the sex and adult entertainment industry.
Very, very varied, and in every state, very hypocritical of each other. Every state, unusually in Australia, no matter what city you're in, has different legislation. And in some cities, in like some states across Australia and cities, sex work is still targeted as a criminal job title. So in some cities and some states, it's decriminalized, and in others, it's not. In some states, we actually require a license to be a sex worker, and in other states, you don't. It's bizarre that it is that way. It's very, very disjointed, where you can advertise you're an adult business, but you can't talk about the products you sell. You can be a sex worker, but if you travel interstate, you can't be a sex worker because your license is for the state you live in. It's very disconnected, and a lot of escorts and a lot of business owners in Australia are working hard to kind of chip away at this and challenge the legalities state by state for a more I guess, more inclusive legislation that applies to everything, rather than just if you live here, it's this way. If you live here, it's that way. Because it makes it difficult for them to work and it makes them difficult to run a business. So it's not very supportive.
I'm surprised you're saying this because Australia appears to be one of the more progressive, liberal, and accepting societies towards the adult entertainment industry. I mean, there's so much activity going on, and I mean, do you not also have a political party known as the Sex Party?
Yeah, we do. So we have a party called Sex Party, which changed its name to the Reason Party, which is interesting. That they changed their names for several reasons. I think purely because they couldn't use the word sex party in the parliament. But we had an organisation here called the Sex Party, and it was there to represent the adult industry and anything related with, you know, mature. But it seems to have changed over the last couple of years to be more mainstream oriented. So the Reason Party doesn't specifically focus on the adult industry anymore like it used to when it was called the Sex Party. And I think that's purely just political reasoning that they wanted to diversify their portfolio because maybe they weren't getting anywhere in Parliament. So we have several different lobby groups now across Australia that focus on particular sectors of the adult industry, and every state around Australia now has a group specifically for sex workers that they can go to for health support or how to help them with their career, just to kind of keep them on track and safe in every state so they don't make a mistake. But there really isn't a body here particularly that's heavily focused on the adult industry in Australia. We have an association here, but it's not like the association that you've created that brings the industry together in a way where they collaborate. It's very much a members network with an agenda that is kind of driven as a group as opposed to collective interest like what you've created, where people can communicate about problems and share that together on a worldwide scale.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm finding a bit of resistance from some of the existing associations and unions because they see us as a threat of sorts. I suppose because we target the same subscribers and same sponsors. But my philosophy about starting this, one of my philosophies is that I'm bringing everyone together. I would like all the unions and all the associations to become part of Adult Industry Association and partner, collaborate, and strengthen or resolve by coming together. But I'm finding a bit of resistance, and at some point in time, we're going to have a chat off air about how we can address this challenge we're having with regards to that resistance. Now,
I think a lot of the resistance comes from the different organizations and associations operating in a way that's in some countries without naming countries, because that would be a conflict of interest if I was to label or name drop any of these associations. But I think that some of the associations around the world aren't in it for mutual benefit. And so when you start creating an association that's global with a mutual interest to support and bring the industry together, they seem to take issue with it because they are purely driven by the monetary advantage that they get by charging members to be a member, forgetting I think, the core reason why they exist. And as a result, they get a little bit defensive about it, because I've been on the receiving end of that personally, not as an agency or as an awards program, but I have been on the receiving end of that from several different associations that find my company a conflict of interest because we don't pick and choose sides. If it, like I said, it's a product or a service, we're there to solve a problem. So it's very interesting that you bring that up, because it doesn't really, well, not really interesting. It's more like, oh yeah, I kind of expected that, because they don't want a conflict of interest, but then they also don't want to help either.
Yes,
roundabout way.
absolutely. The most hostility came in the beginning from sex workers and sex worker organizations, because unless
Right.
you're part of their network. Okay, I ran agencies for many years, and they see me as the enemy because I owned an agency, and maybe you can help me understand this a bit here. It was I'm telling I had some seriously negative rhetoric leveled at me because I operated an agency, and sex workers generally do not like people in my position, because they think that I'm taking advantage, and I've never taken advantage of anyone. As a matter of fact, recruitment was more.
I kind of understand where that logic comes from, and I think
to understand this.
So I think that a lot of sex workers, because I used to work for agencies as a sex worker, and then I went independent more because there were issues of brothel managers and agency managers taking too large of a cut of the money you earn as a sex worker. So I think there's a very big generalization that gets applied to anyone that's an agent. I can actually empathize with you because I'm just a publicist and a marketing person, but our brand gets taken very seriously. So sex workers independently that don't really do their research and just make assumptions have actually, labeled us as a threat or not trustworthy because as far as they're concerned, we're an agency, but we're not. We're a PR firm. So I think a lot of it comes from, lack of research and a lack of wanting to know and just following the crowd. Because if you know much with Twitter, a lot of escorts and performers on there will attack another performer based on hearsay as opposed to truth. So we call that trolling. But it's funny because when you watch it happen, you're like, there's no evidence that this is true. But because a lot of people are doing it, we'll just assume that it's true and join the sheep and follow people in that direction. So I think that's why you cop what you cop. And it's kind of why I cop it too. But I've learned that by not engaging in it as a publicist, it eventually dies down and people just remember the name. And all of that bullshit kind of subsides. But as a sex worker, I know particularly that a lot of sex workers here in Australia even pick and choose the associations they work with based on not so much the ability not to research, but based on ignorance. And they just kind of go, well, if everyone's thinking this, it must be true. And it's kind of, it does disadvantage to them because if they did their research, they would know that you're not there to screw them and I'm not there to screw them either. We're there to help them and to kind of bring them together and help their businesses be successful.
I also found that Australia is not the easiest market, forgive the pun on the word, to penetrate. Okay, I found that Australia, if you're not Australian, they don't want to trust you. It's hard enough to get trust when you are Australian. If you're not Australian, it can be difficult. And I was pleasantly surprised when you agreed to partner with us. And I thought, well, yes, this is my way in. I don't care if his name sounds like a sex toy. This is my way in. So I'm going to get a foot in the door now. But I find that about Australians, they can be a little difficult to get into as a market. What are your thoughts on that? What are your views on that?
If we're talking adult industry generally, it can be very hard to get into it. I think it's because with the adult industry, if it's organizations that represent the industry as a whole, kind of like, the Adult Industry Association and the different awards programs that are out there around the world for different states, different cities and different countries. What it seems to be caused by, and what I've experienced and what my clients have shared with us, is that it comes from this issue of businesses taking advantage of the industry And because a lot of it happens around the world, and when Australia gets it, they kind of just spread it like wildfire. Like I said before, Twitter's good for spreading shit that's not true. So it kind of escalates and domino effects, and then it just kind of, snowballs to a point where everyone just makes the assumption that if we can't see ironclad proof, then we're not going to trust it. And the adult industry is very like that, which especially in Australia. And so there's a lot of what I refer to as old guard. And you probably, So in Australia, there's a couple of key players in the industry that have caused a lot of shit. And so when something new comes up, people are like, oh, fuck, here we go again. It's another one of those people because they've never had a chance to see something positive. And in Australia, that would primarily be the issue that could be being faced, is that they've never really been given a chance to trust anyone, because as soon as they've gone to trust someone, they've screwed them. And it's kind of like, oh, fuck, here we go. So in Australia, that's probably what you're up against the most, because we're up against the same stuff on a daily basis, where we have to constantly reiterate our brand ethos.
Let me just say a few words here. You're tuned into AIA Live, the talk show for the adult entertainment industry. My guest today is Jet Black. Now, you might think I am Jet Black because I'm black, but no, the good-looking white guy is Jet Black. Okay, and I'm Charlie White. Okay, we're talking about a number of things, but we're going to get back on track with Sweet Release Agency. And Jet, I would like to know, what are the core objectives or services offered by Sweet? You do a number of things, but what are the core services that you offer?
Yeah, so our core objective is an agency. So like I touched on earlier, originally we started with just me, and our agency grew to be a family business. So there's now 8 of us. So when we started, there was just me trying to make things work for people. And we went from 40 to several thousand clients around the world. And now in that capacity, I needed to bring on family members that had a connection to the adult industry. One thing we stand for as an agency is that there's no point someone telling you how to do something right in an industry they don't understand. And so by building our brand, we wanted to make sure that every single person on our team, even if it was a photographer or a videographer that we engage around the world, because unfortunately we can't fly everywhere and I can't get everywhere either. So we have people that are in the industry around the world that are from the adult industry and have worked with it significantly. So that way we know it's a quality product. And again, our team in Australia, we're a combination of sex workers, adult business owners, former filmers for film companies. It's interesting that they're all related to me, which is even better. But it's really cool that by being a business where we support the industry, we're driven by it because we're passionate about it. And one thing we're passionate about as an agency is sustainability. And having, like I said, like I touched on earlier, a lot of businesses out there don't support the industry the way they should. So as an agency, we represent the industry as a safe place to go for marketing, advertising, public relations, business consultancy, graphic design, all of the digital marketing and traditional marketing a business or escort would need, or porn star, to help them build their brand, because we know that they need that. And a lot of people think that sex sells itself, but when you're in the industry, you kind of realize that it doesn't. And so us as an agency, our core services are a combination of digital marketing, business consultancy and guidance, right down the line to, your graphic design work, photo, video, advertising, radio, TV. We offer everything. So we're kind of like a one-stop shop for the adult industry.
What kind of changes would you like to see within legislation or within society's attitudes towards the industry that would improve Sweet Release's position and your viability?
Inclusivity. I think that's one of the biggest things on a global scale that our industry is suffering from, is that the world outside our industry doesn't include us. We get labeled a sex shop, and if we own a sex business or an adult business, straight away it's like, nah, we don't want to know you. For example, in Australia, a lot of banks turn away adult businesses because they don't want to support an adult industry business or an adult entertainer. We have organisations here, like even doctors and medical institutes and hospitals that have a religious background that refuse to help someone that's in the adult industry because of their career choice, not because of who they are as a person. I personally would love to see that the adult industry gets an opportunity to be seen as equals. I think that on a global scale, that's one of the biggest issues we have as an industry, is that you get labelled something and that's it. Rather than just be labelled a person and who you are as a person, we as an industry are identified wholly and solely by what we do as a career. And who we are as a person is secondary. Whereas in reality, with every other industry, what you do for work has no bearing on who you are as a person, and we see people as people. So it's interesting to me to make that sort of realization over the last 10 years, because being a sex worker, I'm heavily judged by the world that doesn't understand it. We get labelled a slut and we just have sex for money by people that don't understand the industry. But then when we explain to them why we do it, or what we offer someone that seeks that service, it's more than just sex. It's the engagement you have with the person. So, and what they need from it, whether that's someone with a disability or whatnot. So I would love to see the industry seen as just any other industry, a product or a service. Everyone has sex, and it's either on your lunch break or after 5 or wherever it might be. Everyone's fucking someone. As soon as they can get hard or they know what an orgasm is, they want to try it. So it's interesting to me that our industry still, even though all these different legislations come out, like foster cester came out, or whichever way you say it in every country, people say foster cester, cester foster, but all this legislation came out that impacted our industry, and trying to tackle something that's serious, such as trafficking, to keep people safe. And I understand why that came out, but some of this legislation that's come out around the world has blanket statement our industry. And it's impacted the industry negatively out of what I said before, which was ignorance, the lack of understanding for our industry. And I believe that associations like the Adult Industry Association primarily, and other organisations out there like XBiz and Why Not and all these other associations that are out there that showcase the purity of the industry, because I think a lot of our industry gets tarnished by little tiny things. That's right. And it kind of creates damage for the industry as a whole. So organizations like Adult Industry Association, that is what I believe the industry needs in order to start communicating their voice, because a lot of our voice is taken away from us as an industry by the media. That's right. And what we struggle is that we have to go up against a newspaper or a fucking talkback show or a radio show and go, no.
Well said. Well said.
And we don't really get a chance to do that. So this sort of platform allows for that.
Yes, people do not seem to realize that strength comes in numbers. And if we can get the type of support that we hope to get, it puts us in a more effective, we have a more strategic position to effect change to our advantage. And all the things that you've just said, I want to touch a bit on the X Awards, because you may not have realized it, but we're already 45 minutes into this discussion. How time flies when we're having fun. I want to talk about the X Awards that you host. I think you had one. This is your second year, is that correct?
Yeah, this will be our second year. It took us by surprise. We came up with the idea. So my family and I came up with the idea of launching an awards program back in March last year. It went really quickly. We launched it in March, played around with the concept and thought, well, the industry is saying in Australia that there isn't what they were telling us. This is their feedback, not my personal opinion. But the feedback from the industry was that there wasn't a fair and equitable awards program that supported every sector of the adult industry in Australia. So, or a program that was regulated, that made sure that people that won awards were people that actually deserved to win in categories that they nominated themselves in. So we wanted to create an awards program where businesses and entertainers had the opportunity to enter a program and provide a bit of information about who they are. Because I believe in stories. I could talk all day about stuff I've gone through in my career and not realize the time like I've done today. But it's funny that a lot of businesses and entertainers out there think that the industry is this small. And then when you introduce an awards program where you give people the chance to tell their story and who they are, you find out that it's much bigger than what you anticipated. So we launched it in March and had a little bit of resistance because there are other awards programs in Australia. And so we were worried that it may not work. But then by June 2019, we had over 205 finalists confirmed for the program. We had $55,000 donated in prizes from 30 sponsors across Australia, and a venue for an awards night, and 155 guests confirmed to turn up across the industry. And people flying from, so our awards night was held in Melbourne. We had people from Perth, Brisbane, Tasmania, Sydney, all flying to Melbourne to attend an awards night to celebrate each other.
Nice.
And so it was a really awesome opportunity because we had no idea that it would work. So when we started it, we were like, we're going to do it because there's a demand for it and people want it. Whether or not they'll participate is another thing. But I was shocked by how much support we had with it because we told everyone's story. We still are. So the X Awards website, we're constantly putting out the stories about winners that won awards and sharing photos from that night. Across our social media, our website, and giving them a chance to tell their story and why they won. And it's been really humbling to be put in a position where I can create that for them. And I'm pretty sure you have the same experience with AIA. Is that, you know, you put your heart and soul into it. You're like, this may work, it may not. And then the industry resonated so strongly to it that we now have our next program this year with double the participants. So
tell us some of the categories you have. Tell us some of the categories for the awards.
Yeah, so we wanted to focus on inclusivity. So we ended up creating categories for male, female, transgender escorts and adult film performers. We wanted to create categories for content. I think that's something that gets overlooked. So a lot of adult industry workers create content in Australia that's about sexual health or wellness or you know, how to make love more interesting for you and your partner. So we wanted to focus on people that create content for that. We have categories for adult retailers, new products, new adult businesses that start up in Australia, to adult industry support services. We wanted to recognise businesses that don't turn their back on our industry and actually embrace it. And so we created an award category for that as well. But overall, there's about 30 plus award categories. We had 75 when we started it, but we had to bring it down. Because it was just too many, because we wanted to recognise everything. But we didn't have enough time to do it last year, but this year I think we'll put more categories up.
The Adult Industry Association will be nominated for next year's X Award, I hope.
That's it. Well, we're bringing you on board because I want Australia to understand what your platform is all about. And I think it's about time there's been an association like yours that is openly embracing the industry and bringing them together. And that's something I'm really passionate about communicating this year through our X Awards program. So, yeah.
Oh, no, it's going to be an absolute pleasure to be part of all that you're doing. You are supporting us as our chapter manager in Australia, and anything we can do to support you, of course, absolutely. It's so refreshing to finally start speaking with individuals who are not pushing back against the industry. We went through that in the first months of developing the association. It was extremely difficult. Now people are coming to us from all over the world. I'm proud to say that we're close to 1,000 members. And, now, and since the show 2 days ago, we've had interest from organizations that want to sponsor the association and get involved in what we're doing, because they now have a better sense of what it's about. It's all about understanding what it is. When people don't understand, you get all kinds of bullshit responses and so on. I've always maintained, and I argue very strongly, that anyone who takes the time, and I'm talking just 2-3 minutes, to read and understand what the association is actually about, I am confident that they will sign up and support. Whether or not they are part of the adult entertainment industry, they have to look at what we're doing as something virtuous, something that is needed, something that it's not commercially driven. It's there to improve the industry in terms of health and safety and all the other challenges that we face on a daily basis. I challenge anyone not to support if they take the time to understand. And I'm certainly happy you took the time to understand it. And here we are today having a wonderful conversation about your business or association. It's not my association, it's everyone's association. It's also yours now. And I look forward to what we can continue to do and to explore all the synergies that exist between Sweet Release and that lovely sex toy company in Australia.
I have to come up with a product now, don't I?
Yeah, I'm only disappointed about one thing. You've never at any point in time invited me to come to Australia, to come and see the team. And, I've never been to Australia. I can't wait. Can't wait for the...
Well, maybe once I get you here. We're based in Melbourne, but my team's across Sydney and Brisbane, so we're all over the. So you'll have to fly around a bit.
No, I'll definitely get there. Well, we've actually come to the end of this episode. This was supposed to be a quick 30-minute interview, but it's gone 45 minutes going into the hour. But not a dull moment. Jet, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show. I know you're a busy guy, and I look forward to all the wonderful things we're going to do together as partners under the association. And I would like to talk to you about the X Awards very seriously, because I would certainly like to play a more active role in that. I would love to be a sponsor. We talked about that already. I'm happy to make an offer in terms of advertising space on our website and anything else that we can contribute. And also, I would like to think that you can play more of a role in this production going forward. You are such the media person. I would love to think that from time to time you can come into the show and give us some support in terms of being the host for some of the episodes. That'd be great. And inviting your clients on to talk about what they have as an extension of Sweet Release. You can now offer them to come onto the show and give them that bit of exposure and additional visibility.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. I've actually spoken to a few of my clients about it that have some really interesting products here in Australia. There's one client particularly here that has, lube that has glitter in it. She was really excited about it. Yeah, you pop it in and it explodes, and when you have sex, it fills you with glitter. So such an interesting product here in Australia.
There's no shortage of content coming from your side, that's for sure. Is there anything you would like to say to the listeners before we bring the show to a close? Anything you want to say in closing about Sweet Release or about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I have a habit of rambling. So if people have any particular questions about Sweet Release Agency and what we do, again, Sweet Release is marketing and PR for the adult industry. It doesn't matter what business or entertainer you are. We're there to support you. We have clients all over the world. We've got clients in California, we've got clients in Hungary, we've got clients in Brazil, Germany, all around the world. And it's really awesome to see that the industry is learning more about us and what we do. I am actually happy to extend to members of the Adult Industry Association 25% off our packages and pricing and all that sort of stuff. So if anybody is interested in just having a chat with us even, and still doesn't really want to opt for our services, but just wants some general guidance on marketing and advertising, please do email us or jump on our website and drop us a question. I've noticed that some members have already started doing this, which is great. That's what we exist for. So thank you for reaching out to us and asking us questions about what do I do to market my business in my country, because even though we're based in Australia, we know a lot about every sector of the industry around the world. So don't just think that because we're from the land down under, that we don't know anything about every other country. So please reach out to us with your questions. Again, X Awards is an adult industry entertainment awards program for businesses and entertainers in Australia. We are looking at opening that in 2020. If not this year, it will be 2021, where we go global. But we are looking at that. And so please stay tuned to the website for that one. Hopefully we do that sooner rather than later, but it'll be based on the feedback from you guys at the AIA as we grow in our partnership as to whether we take that as a global thing. But yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on board, Charlie. And if people do have any specific questions, they can jump on our website at sweetrelease.agency, and the X Awards is xawards.com.au.
Thank you very much. You made my job so easy. You're the ultimate guest. You have a lot to say, and it's all exciting. Well, we've come to the end of the second episode of AIA Live, which is the talk show for the sex and adult entertainment industry. I'm your host, Charlie Spice. I want to thank Jet Black for coming on as our special guest. I want to thank our production team and also the viewers for giving us an audience. This is Charlie Spice saying bye for now. Peace. I am out.
Cheers.
Okay.